we don't have very many contested races this year, but it's still nice that everyone is joining us. And I think we're going to have an interesting night with interesting questions. So I'm glad you're here. My name is Ty Dinnan. I'm welcoming you to Candidates Night as the president of the Charlotte Grange. The Grange Hall is a beautiful historic building and community gathering place in East Charlotte. And the Charlotte Grange is also a community organization whose work is to honor our agricultural roots and help build a resilient future for all. We run programs and events, including Candidates Night, seasonal clothing drives, Words for Thirds, the Farm Map, Veggie Swaps, and Grange on the Green music concerts. We're gearing up for another exciting programming season, and we have a lot of fun volunteer opportunities coming up. Membership is open to all residents aged 14 years or older, and I encourage you to visit charlottegrange.org to learn more. Said this a few minutes ago, but a few technical things. If you're interested in having captions, you can go down to the bottom of your screen on Zoom and click on the 3 dots that has the word more under it. And one of the options there is captions. So if that would help you receive this information, I encourage you to do that. We're going to have everyone who's not talking muted. So if you are going to talk, remember to unmute yourself. And if I notice some people are unmuted and we're hearing things from their houses, I'm just going to go ahead and mute you. If you're interested in asking questions, the best way to do that is in the chat. And Susanna, where do we find the chat? Okay, I'm not sure where.
You can
It's
find
under
it
more
right on the
also.
bottom. And
Okay.
it's usually right next to the participants on the right-hand side, so you can just write it in there.
Awesome. And if you're unable to find that, you can also try raising your hand. I have my window minimized, so I don't see as many options. If you're noticing that your video is lagging behind the audio, you can turn off your own video and then the video of the participants speaking should catch up. And so hopefully everyone is able to participate and hear everything, and welcome everyone. I'm glad you're here. So I'm now going to introduce our moderator, Jonathan Silverman. Jonathan is the chair of the Charlotte Library Board of Trustees and has taught at St. Michael's College for 25 years, maybe 26. I think that was from last year, if you're still teaching, Jonathan. He has lived in Charlotte for 33 years, and we're so happy to have him moderating again this year. Thank you, Jonathan, for volunteering your time.
Thank you, Ty. Hopefully you can all hear me. So thank the Grange for sponsoring this. And I think we're really excited that the Grange is part of our community. So many exciting activities that go on there. Thanks also to the library, Margaret being the director, and of course, Susanna, who's making sure that we're technically savvy this evening. So we're really grateful for that. So my responsibility is to really just structure our evening together. And the first thing I want to do is to thank all of the participants who are here. Everybody who's turned out, it says something about having an active, concerned citizenry. So I think that says a lot. It's probably as many people here as might turn out at the town meeting. But anyways, our goal tonight is we're hoping to have about an hour and 15 minutes. So that would take us to about 7:50, I guess. And there are 4 specific questions that each of the candidates will answer. They have received these, so they're familiar with them. And they will have 3 minutes per question. They don't have to take 3 minutes, but at 3 minutes, the hook comes. So we'll sort of take them. Louise, is that a question? You're muted.
First and foremost, Jonathan has done a magnificent job as
at the library. Hey, Jonathan, I did not get the questions. Could you re-email them to me, hun?
Well,
Hi,
I think.
Louise. I
Go
can
ahead.
email them to you. I sent them to everyone that RSVP'd, but I'm happy to do that now while Jonathan's introducing things. I'm going to send them to your, I think your GMAVT address.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it was it's always, it's always me.
And then at the end, there have been some people who have emailed Ty some questions that we can use at the end if there's time. And you can also certainly put some questions in the chat as they come along. The intent is really to get to know these candidates and for them to share their perspectives on the questions that I'm going to ask. So the first question I'm going to ask, maybe is the obvious, is why are you running for office? And what do you hope to contribute in the office that you're running for? And I don't know whether I should just arbitrarily call on you or if you prefer to wait. I think I will, just to make things easier. And with the other questions, I'll have you just raise your hand. Okay, does that work for all of you? Okay, so we'll start with Frank.
Okay, been working with the select board for a while now. I think I know what the job is. Seems like we're making some big changes right now. And I've been involved in town for quite a while, being on the zoning board for years and going to a lot of the meetings that we have now. So I'd just like to continue my helping out the rest of the select board to move forward with the dreams of Charlotte.
Great, thank you, Frank. I think we all appreciate your service and your commitment to the select board and all the research that you do in advance of any issue that comes up. Okay, Natalie.
Hi. Well, first of all, I am running because I really feel like I want to be of service to our community. I really love this town. We're relatively new here, but we moved here because we love it and we want to raise our children here. And I also feel like it's time for my generation to step forward and start to participate more actively in governance, both locally and on a wider scale. I value the opportunity to be part of some future-oriented decisions and conversations that balance environmental stewardship and development. It's important that we secure an environmentally and developmentally sustainable future, both for our town and for our children. And it's also important to me to listen to our community and be a part of conversations that involve the community and that support civic engagement.
Thank you, Natalie. Appreciate that. Louise? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
People have been trying to mute me for my entire life with very limited success. Thank you, Jonathan. First and foremost, I would like to say what an honor it is to be part of the select board. And second of all, what a privilege it has been to work with Frank. What matters to me, we have some serious issues which we need to address. There's no question about those. But what matters to me a lot is the ability of the five of us to work together. That does not mean agreement at all. It just means respect and caring and making sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you, Louise. And Matt.
Good evening, folks. I'm running for the Library Board of Trustees. Moved to Charlotte in '99 and raised two boys who went to Charlotte Children's Center and CCS and CVU, and are literally, as we speak, launching. My oldest moves to Brooklyn tomorrow, and so I've really come to have a lot of gratitude for this town, and I live about 3-minute walk from the library. The library has been a focal point of our family, our whole time here, right down to being just part of the dog walking loop that I did with our beloved Cosmo, who sadly left us this summer. But I just want to contribute how I can to the town. I did work for about 10 years with rescue and stopped a little while back, and have been sort of fishing around in ways that I can help. And this opportunity was presented to me, and it really seems to coalesce a lot of things that are important to me. I have an aunt and uncle who are librarians their whole careers, and so I know firsthand how valuable it is for our community, for most communities, and I just want to help how I can. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you, Matt. And I should say that even though Ty introduced me as the chair of the library board, my term comes to end in a couple of weeks. And I have to say, Matt was our second choice because Cosmo was our first choice. And unfortunately, Cosmo was unavailable. So thank you all for sharing your perspectives as to why you want to provide service to our community. So now I'm going to ask a couple of other questions which probably will have different perspectives. And I think the community is really interested to hear them. And again, I will ask the question, and this time I will not popcorn you in terms of just selecting it, because you may not choose to answer if you don't want to. So just raise your hand, and then I will call on you. So the first question is, how do you think Charlotte should structure town meeting day? I saw Natalie first and then Louise.
So I really love the idea of a continued in-person town meeting day followed by an election day. I think the way that it was structured to vote on the budget in person and then vote on other issues allows a lot of people to have an opportunity to have a say in what happens in town. But I think that the in-person town meeting offers a really unique opportunity for people to come together and have conversation that may not otherwise happen. And I think that people really benefit from those chances to gather with their neighbors and talk about their visions for their town.
Thank you, Natalie. Louise.
Sorry, the cat was butting up against me, so I couldn't mute myself quickly enough. I think I agree with Natalie. There's no perfect solution here. One of the things that has been important is to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. And unfortunately, the best way to do that is by Australian ballot. But there are downsides. And they are basically, it's pretty impersonal. And, but going back to an in-person town meeting, which I support, is very labor intensive. And it does take a huge amount of work. Hey, if you know how to bake, it's not so bad. Jonathan, what's your most favorite thing to bring to town meeting? But anyway, you don't have to answer that question. I think I am torn, and I was listening to what Natalie was saying. I think a mixed version, at least in the short run here.
Thanks, Louise. Okay, Frank, we'll hear from you.
I'm sure everybody knows this, but I voted to have in-person town meeting this year. And I got overruled, me and Lewis did. We voted a few years ago to move it to Saturday. We've never done that yet. So there has been no, it hasn't been done. So I think I like in-person town meeting. And what it means to me is that if you want to know the budget, that's great. Come to the select board meetings when we're finalizing the budget. But once, if you go have it by Australian ballot, we don't have town meeting, you don't have a chance to change it. So you have a chance at town meeting to change it. So if you're diligent enough to come to the select board meetings to finalize it, that's great. But the feeling of town meeting day to me has always, been special. Even when I had to stand out there in the cold to be elected, I had to stand outside the building. It was good. So I think, because we had voting on the same day, I just wish we could continue that.
Great. Thank you, Frank. So we'll now ask us the next question, which is certainly has raised eyebrows throughout the town. What do you think about the town manager versus the town administrator structure of governance? What were the key considerations in the decision that you are making regarding that? Louise, I saw your hand up first.
My strong views are worthless if I can't manage to get myself off mute. I think at this point in our development that a town manager is a really bad idea. Right now, we have a town administrator. And I think what we need to do over the next year is experiment is too loaded of a word. We need to explore how many issues we can have the town administrator do. The town manager proposal is requires, as you all know, and Frank knows way better than I do, requires a charter change. So it's a very cumbersome way to change things. What I would like to see is that over the next year, we try some other alternatives. And by the other alternatives, I mean, let's go through, and I know that I, among others, have put these lists together. What can we delegate to a town administrator? I just think I think that going to a manager thing is it's just it's going to commit us to things we may not want to do. Done.
Thanks, Louise. Anyone else would like to respond to this question? Frank?
Yeah, I just don't think we're ready yet. I don't think we have the infrastructure that needs to be, overseen. And we don't have the number of employees that I see a lot of other towns that do have a manager. Even Heinsberg has a lot more employees, and they took them 2 votes to get to a town manager. So I just don't, and they got more infrastructure than the town of Charlotte does. Again, you can a town administrator can be authorized to do just about anything a town manager can do. So and we're working on right now to hopefully get our town administrator up to speed. He's only been at the job for a few months on his own. I think we need some more time. And like I said, I'm not ruling out going to a manager someday. I just don't know. I just don't think we're ready right now.
Thanks, Frank. Natalie, did I see your hand up? Yep.
So I agree. It seems to me that when you have a 5-person select board, the number of community touch points that those 5 people have is a lot higher than a town manager. And I recognize that the select board would still exist, but when there's decision-making power, the more people that you are in contact with in the community, the more likely you are to be making decisions that reflect what the community wants. So it seems to me that, you know, the current model serves that purpose really nicely. The other thing is sort of what Frank was just saying, that it seems that the town governance has just undergone some significant transitions, and transitions are not a great time to make more change. It seems like a great time to just let the dust settle and see where things are. So for right now, it seems to me to be wise to just wait on the town manager decision until after the new town administrator has had a chance to really learn his job and become more proficient, and see if it's necessary to make that change.
I'm going to just go off script a little bit to ask a question that came out of the community, which is related to this, which is, what's your opinion on whether residents should be part of the decision-making on whether to switch to a town administrator, or should it be a select board? Natalie?
That seems like the select board has done a great job of expressing their views, and now it's turned over to a vote to the town. And so I think anytime the town gets to vote, the decision is going to be what the town wants is best reflected in a vote versus the 5-person board. So I absolutely think that now that it's going to a vote, that however the town votes, certainly everybody should get behind it.
Oh, Frank? Yeah. Pipe in.
Yeah, I'm not against I mean, I think it's great that the town gets to vote on it. You know, I'm just hoping they're informed, and there's some information on the town website, been a lot of back and forth on Front Porch Forum. You know, I'm hoping that everybody has an informed decision, and make your decision however you feel. I'm not, you know, I say, personally, I say vote no, but you don't have to listen to me. It's your vote. You deal with it how you want to deal with it. I'll accept it, whatever comes through. I have to. Basic point. Once the town votes, and if they decide they want to go to a manager, then it's up to the select board to make it work. So in my mind, I'm not against it going to town vote. I think it would have been better if it wasn't a petition that brought it forth. That's all.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, the next question I'm going to ask really has to do about the future of Charlotte. And the question that the candidates received was, considering development, the environment, climate, affordable housing, villages, and so forth, what do you hope for and envision for the future of Charlotte? And I'm going to add to this a question that came from Mike in the chat. And I'm just going to read it so you can build it into your response. What is your opinion on having owner-unoccupied, exclusively short-term rental houses in residentially zoned neighborhoods? Do they constitute a commercial enterprise? So if you wish to build that into your vision of the future of Charlotte, that would be great. Well, given that it just Natalie and Frank are there, one of you needs to respond. All right, Frank, you go for it.
Well, it's a kind of a long-winded thing, but there's been state statutes that have changed. They're, now where you can have a house, now you can have a duplex. Doesn't have to be owner occupied. So you may have two people living next to you that's not being occupied by the owner. And then to put even more onto it, we have the accessory dwelling. And so now the accessory dwelling becomes part of, some of the discussion with at the planning commission meetings was if you have to have an accessory dwelling, you need to live in one of them. Well, you may have an accessory dwelling and a duplex, and they're saying that you can do that. So if you put out a 5-lot subdivision, you can have 15 houses out there. A duplex, 5 duplexes and 5 accessory dwellings, as long as one is owner occupied, or you can have just the duplexes out there, and they don't have to be owner occupied. So, so I think there's a lot of room for expansion in Charlotte for housing, affordable housing, senior housing, because you can have a duplex where you can have a house, you can have an accessory dwelling where you can have a house or a duplex. It seems like it just seems like there's a lot of opportunities. I think the big thing is water and septic, especially in our villages. They're working on zoning bylaws, they're working on village plans, and these village plans are great, but you can say what you can have there, and it could be a lot more than what you could have there now, but the properties may not be able to handle it with water or septic. I'm sure you've heard that we have issues with the West Village with water, and and small lots have a hard time with septic. I mean, if you have a 1-acre lot, you might find septic for a house. You may have a hard time finding septic for a duplex. You may have even a harder time finding septic for a duplex with an accessory dwelling. So I don't know if it's the size of the lot, really that needs to be done. I think we need to concentrate on, if we really want to have our villages to grow, we're going to need to get septic and water. And out there in the rural district, it may be feasible to make it bigger than 5 acres so that you keep some of your open land out there. Maybe that might be a possibility. If you went to 15 acres, you'd still be able to have your duplex and your accessory dwelling. You'd have 3 houses on 15 acres, which is still 5 acres per dwelling. That's a possibility. Now, to the Mike Antachka's question, there's it always seems like there's a lot of problems, or can be problems, with short-term rentals, and I understand that. I just don't know how to enforce that, and how it could be registered, how it could be commercialized by the town to maybe a registration in town, and whether they have to follow the rental housing rules. And I guess I'll stop there. I'm going on way too long.
Thanks, Frank. We always appreciate the thoroughness of your responses, your experience bringing it in. Louise.
In terms of short-term rentals, it's where I have come down on this is a registration thing, so that basically it's not onerous, but if you want to rent out your apartment, your house, whatever, there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe having a registry so we know who's doing what. And if somebody wants to rent something, they know what's happening.
Thanks, Louise. Natalie?
Well, to the original question about the future of Charlotte, I would say offhand, I wouldn't envision a town that's particularly different from the one that we live in today. I have to begrudgingly admit that change is inevitable, and the best change comes when it's done with intention. And so I guess with that in mind, I would envision a continued rural, but perhaps more vibrant town, with maybe more civic engagement, one where we have been mindful of workforce housing development, where we are mindful of how we develop in the town so that we're protecting the limited natural resources and also enhancing access for people who need employees who can either get here by way of transit or live here by way of more affordable housing. As far as the short-term rental market goes, I think that's something that I would have to spend a little bit more time understanding. I know that it's really contentious. I know that people have really strong feelings about it, that some people are, make their living off of short-term housing rentals. And for other people, it feels like an invasion. And so I think that's something that I would want to learn more about before I landed one way or the other on it. But offhand, I'd be curious to know how it impacts the availability of rental property for people who perhaps can't afford to buy into the community.
Great, thank you, Natalie. I think most of the conversation was on affordable housing and rental issues. I just want to give candidates a chance to share anything else that they envisioned about the future, whether it has to do with the environment, villages, and so forth, just before we move on. Go ahead, Natalie. I was thinking that maybe because nobody was responding that Charlotte didn't have a future, but I'm sure
Well, I maybe touched on it just a little bit, but as far as the environment, absolutely. I think that it's really important, as a parent, that someday, 40 years from now, my kids can look back on a healthy town, hopefully live here too, and be able to benefit from all the wonderful green spaces and open land and, clean air that we benefit from today. So understanding that the decisions that we make today are the decisions that impact that 40-year future, I think is really front of mind for me.
Actually, I'm going to just put out in the response, I just saw Matt's hand and Frank's. What are those issues that we need to be thinking about for the future? Matt, go ahead.
I was really just wanting to say that the one thing I really think clearly should be in Charlotte's future is a vibrant library. And, I recognize tonight there's a lot of these questions are for select board people who are running, and I want to do the best job I can for our library. I think it's, got a place in our future, and I hope it becomes it continues to be an integral place in our future. Beyond that, I'm enjoying listening, but if anybody does have questions of a library sort, I'll post my email in the chat, but in about 10 minutes, I'm going to have to bow out. But I did want to say anyway, thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate everybody's thoughtful responses.
Thank you for saying that, Matt. And certainly the library, the senior center, the Grange and so forth really contributes to our sense of community and hopefully will do so in the future. It does provide that sense of vibrancy. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, anybody else want to pipe in about the future question before go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, basically you have to look at our town plan. I mean, it is due up to be renewed. Unfortunately, we have to do this at least within every 8 years, even if we just reapprove the one that we have. which I don't see that happening. I know the planning commission is gonna work hard on that to renew that. But I mean, you know, my vision of the future is, you know, not a lot different than what it is today. You know, I've lived in this town my whole life so far, and you know, it's changed. And it, to me, it hasn't changed for the worse, it's changed for the better. There's still a lot of open space out there. You know, there's, you know, it would be nice to me. I know, I say this a lot that we're a bedroom community. I would like to see a little more business in town, you know, so that people don't have to go out of town to work, don't have to go out of town for everything they need. You know, I have to go out of town to do a lot of things. And uh I guess you know, I'd like to try to keep the, you know, as much as we can open. I'm not against uh you know, building up our villages. You know, I think they could be built up. Like I said, I think they need some infrastructure before that happens. But what some people don't realize is that you can do quite a bit on a small piece of land if you're talking, as Natalie says, you know, when you're talking senior housing, affordable housing, you know, you have a 5-acre lot. If you have the septic, you can put, I think, 20 senior housing on 5 acres. So, I mean, you can put quite a bit in small areas, which could be next to the village. You know, might not have to be in the village district itself, but they could be next to it so that they could encompass, you know, and maybe there would be some changes to the villages to increase their areas. You know, what is village area now, and maybe even make an extra zone, which is, you know, maybe something outside of the village. So my hope is that the change is not drastic and, you know, within a short period of time is the main thing. I mean, that's mainly what I'm looking at. You know, like I said, there could be some changes done so that we can try to keep some of our open land, but there's still some farmers out there, although you can call them whatever you want, micro farmers, gentleman farmers, you know, that are doing vegetables, that are doing eggs, that are doing sheep. You know, they're doing a lot of different things, even some of the horse stables out there doing a little business. I think these are all great, and you know, and I think we could use some more of them. And I think, you know, and that would be a good use of these lands that are there. So I just think there's a lot that could be done without drastic change. And but I know things are going to change. I know we're going to get more housing. You know, we can guide it as best we can with our zoning bylaws to enforce, you know, the placement of this housing, and trying to keep our open lands that we love with our little forest tracks and our open fields. So I guess I'll finish with that.
Thanks, Frank. I though have to dispute one thing you said, was that you lived in Charlotte all your life so far. We just hope that you remain in Charlotte, so there is no so far. The next the questions that I'm going to ask now have come from folks who have written to Ty and or well, who are put on the chat. And the first question I'm going to ask is, what do you feel are the biggest challenges for the select board currently and in the future? And you can also, in addressing this question, since it wasn't a separate question, but if it fits in, you may even think about the functioning of the select board and how are ways to continue its success and also work on ways to improve.
Do you really want me to keep on going? You're muted, Jonathan.
Thank you. From where I am, I just have to, okay, open the screen. So now I can see whether Natalie was raising her hand. But I did see you raise your hand, Frank, so go ahead.
I'm all for Natalie starting this. A lot of people know some of my thoughts.
Natalie, do
you'd
you
like
wish
to,
to take it
Natalie.
on?
Sure. I mean, I think, Frank probably has a better handle on what his greatest challenge is as a current select board member. So I obviously can't speak to that, but I think from the outside looking in, it seems that, what I've heard is that it can feel difficult for community members to come in and speak, and that sometimes the dialogue isn't as effective perhaps as it could be. And so it seems like a big an objective I would have would be to sort of facilitate some improved communication, maybe between select board members, but more specifically with the community. And I think that the select board is doing a lot of work, and I'm sure it's quite taxing. But I did hear last night that the members stood up and said that this isn't too much for me. So while it seems like the workload might seem big and onerous to people on the outside, or at least that's what I've been hearing from people as a reason for shifting to a town manager. I don't actually hear that from the select board members, but I think that they have their hands full. There are a lot of different opinions. They're balancing a cross section of the demographic in town, people who have been here for a long time, people who are newer to town, people who want things to stay the same, people who really want change. And I think trying to balance the needs of a mixed community like that is always going to be difficult.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay. Frank, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of challenges with the select board. There's work to be done. That's a given. And there's, again, I've been here a while on the select board. I don't see it as that much, as too much work. So, but again, some of the things that, some of the challenges of going forward, I mean, to try to hand off some of this work to our town administrator. Again, he hasn't been there that long. I'm hoping that I want to hand things to him as he can, as he feels he can do them, sort of thing. And that may be quicker than I think, and he may say, yes, I can do this kind of stuff now, but I think some of the things that were said were the meetings run long. And sometimes the meetings run long because we're actually listening to the people. Our meeting on Monday was supposed to end at 8:45. It ended up at 9:15. Why? Because we were listening to the people. And that was even after we started that part of the section that was at the end early, and we still went over time. So I think, sometimes it's not the work that needs to be done, it's the listening to the public that come to the meetings, whether they're on Zoom or in person, to hear them. And they have a lot of good ideas. I mean, I can't deny that. I learn things from people all the time, their perspective of the situation. So, what are the hurdles going to be in moving forward? I mean, if we go to a town manager, there's going to be basically the same hurdles going to a town manager as there are with staying with a town administrator, but we have time to do it. Where if we go to a town manager, things are going to be kind of fast tracked, as to try to get policies and other things in place in order to hand these reins over to a town manager, where we can do this a little bit more thoughtful and organized with a town administrator at this time. So I just think that that's one of the big hurdles. I mean, again, there's always things coming in, and we never know. I mean, right now we're sending out the mowing contracts and other things. We're going to get the bids in. I mean, but all those are normal. And one of our big problems, one of our big challenges we used to have was the budget, which we still have that challenge, but it's been a lot better since our town administrator and our town clerk worked on it and brought it to the select board. It was just loads easier and a lot less time at the meetings and at the select board level. So I think things are getting better, but there's always challenges. I'm learning something new every year, and there's, you know, and some things that are challenges that aren't going to be solved. You know, and you know, and you know, there's you know, we got health benefits that we got to deal with, and you know, and Nate's been working on that, and Lewis and Kelly have been working on it. You know, I just think there's a lot of things in the works, yes, but I don't think it's overtaxing on the select board members.
Thanks, Frank. I think both you and Natalie remind us of how much work select board members do. And I think as a town, we sometimes forget because it's such a thankless position, and the amount of time you put into not only the hours on Monday night, but the research to prepare for it. I think we all appreciate it. So we can't let Matt off the hook. And there have been two questions in the chat about one from Ruah in terms of, you know, what does he think more that the library can hope for in the future? And then one came from my Valentine, so I have to make sure that I read it. And it's really has to do with access, thinking about how to make the library more accessible to folks who may physically not be able to get into the building. You know, what devices are there to help be as even more inclusive than we already are. So Matt, before you go, maybe you can respond to those questions.
Sure. What I would say, really, I think is the library does so much. I went to that sort of information gathering meeting last month and was really struck and reminded how broad their charter is. I mean, you know, whether it's tools or books or computer education or just it's just a valuable resource. So it might not be such a satisfying answer, but I don't have a ton of ideas of what else the library should be doing right now. I really anticipate being in kind of listening sponge mode for the first for the foreseeable future. If I get this, it's a 5-year term, and I have a lot of faith that the people who have been running the ship up until now have been doing a really good job. So you know, I don't have a ton of energy around here's what you need to do differently. But as far as outreach, it's a great question. The first thing that pops into my mind is the old bookmobile, and so how we make some variation of that a reality, and whether that's, you know, stocked with other kind of media, laptops and things like that, but a way to physically drive to people and help them with resource makes a lot of sense in this rural community. So however that might happen and how that's been talked about in the past, I'm unaware. So, you know, I honestly just want to be in listening mode for the first while, and am absolutely open to any suggestions people have, but I think they're doing a great job as is, honestly. I don't see any glaring things to be changed necessarily. So I don't know if that's a satisfying answer, but that's what I got. Okay.
Thanks, Matt. I think we all appreciate that you will really hit the tarmac running, so to speak. And it's, I can be thankful that 10 years ago, my wife didn't ask me that question while I was sitting in your seat. But because it's a tough question, I can just say that the library does an amazing job in terms of offering so many different programs for the varied constituents that are in our community. And hopefully you'll be able to see that as we go forward. And the numbers keep reducing. I don't know what happened to Frank now. But so I will just carry on and ask another question, and I don't know how. Yeah, bye, Matt. Thanks for being here. So the question that I have in this one would have been nice to have both Natalie's and Frank's and Louise's perspective is, again, this is a question that came from the community. Do you consider that the staffing structure of our town is the right size? Just in order to meet the town goals. In other words, do we have the right staffing for all the needs of the community? And are there areas that we may be shortchanging the needs of the community, or are there places that we do a good job? At least that's the question that I'm responding. So I don't have to wait for a hand to be called. Maybe Natalie, you have some perspective on it.
I guess it's just me. And to be fair, I think to take a page out of Matt's book, I have to say that should I be elected into this position, there would be absolutely a learning curve, during which time I would be hoping to absorb as much information and expertise from other members and also people in other parts of governance. So I don't know that I can answer that question with any real expertise. I'd really just be throwing a guess out, and that's not something I want to do. I want to really understand the ins and outs of our staffing needs and to be able to answer whether it seems sufficient.
And I think that's a fair answer. I think you will get much more knowledge about that on the job to be able to really assess. And again, this is a question that came from our community. So I'm asking another question, and it'll be this one you may have a perspective on, but would you consider, having not been elected or even starting, but would you consider adding a volunteer budget committee, kind of so that's similar to other towns have it, to assist with preliminary preparation of our annual budget and the creation of a longer-term capital reserve budget?
I think volunteers are wonderful. People who want to give their time to do hard work, if that's an area of expertise and something that they can lend a hand in. I of course, again, without having the experience of going through the budget as a select board member, as other people have, I can't say what kind of obstacles there might be to that kind of assistance. But offhand, if getting people to volunteer for things is not easy, but should there be a line of people waiting to volunteer their time to help prepare a budget, it seems to me, if that's an area of expertise, that would be quite useful.
Great. And I'm going to ask another question that's come on the chat. And this question is, a large percentage of the budget is for the fire and rescue service. Do you think it should continue as a separate nonprofit organization, or do you believe it should be part of the town government with more oversight?
Yes, I know that the fire and rescue is a contentious subject, and one that, again, I will have to say that I think as I learn more, I would probably have a more informed opinion, but I can say offhand that, of course, Charlotters want good quality rescue service. That's in everyone's best interest. And also Charlotters want us to be mindful of the budget. And so it seems extremely important as the select board, for the select board to balance those very equal and sometimes competing needs.
Great. Ty, do you see any other questions that have come in or hands raised? Because I'm
I got back on.
Oh, you're back on.
Yeah, my computer crashed.
Oh, no. So you want to improve our access. Um, well, did you hear any of the questions that were asked?
No, I know you were talking about fire and rescue. That was the only one I heard the end of.
I did ask the question about whether you think the staffing structure in our town is sufficient for it to meet the town needs. And Natalie wisely just said she would need to really just become a student to really understand it before she could make an opinion on that. And I don't know whether you want to share your response to that.
To handle the town needs, I mean, we have a town administrator, which is coming up to speed really quickly. Our town treasurer and town clerk has been doing the job, excellent for many years. We have a great planning and zoning staff, and we've got Lori over at the senior center, and we've got the library staff. I think we've got Junior to handle our roads. I mean, I don't know really whatever else we really need. So for staff wise, I think we're in pretty good shape.
And another question that, thank you. And another question that came up, just to get your response on, was whether to consider adding a volunteer budget committee. And that would be to assist with the preliminary preparation of an annual budget and creating a longer term capital reserve budget. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, I'm wary of too many committees. That we do have some now, and we tried having a hiring committee. We tried having the benefits committee. I'm wary of having extra committees, and right now, that is something that Nate has said that he wanted to work on, and Kelly was talking about how she would help him. So I think that and the whole select board would too. But I mean, I just think that we have some experience with Kelly, and we have some go get it with Nate. So I and he's got some experience with gathering information. He did our budget this year, and and he's got some good ideas moving forward. So I don't know if we really need a committee, but I guess I would lay that out to the whole select board to make the choice or to make more comments on it, because they could change my mind.
And the last question, Natalie was responding when you came back on, had to do with the fire and rescue and whether you felt it should continue as a separate nonprofit organization or should be part of the town government.
Well, right now it's its own private organization. It has some special funds that it handles, and they handle everything. So right now we don't really have a lot of knowledge of what's happening there per se. I mean, we do see all the budget reports, so we do see those, and it gives us a general idea of how the money is being spent. It is a big part of our budget that we have now. They unionized their full-time employees not too long ago. And they've had discussions. Nate had talked with the town manager in Shelburne and kind of led towards some discussion of maybe doing a regional fire and rescue. To go to make it municipal, I think it's and from what I see, it looks like a complete shutdown and restart, reorganize. So I don't see uh, in my mind, I don't see an easy transition. I'm not saying that anything is easy, but I don't see an easy transition, and it looks like to me that it might be either go regional or basically start a new municipal fire and rescue. I personally would like to try to see if a regional one would work, maybe with this Shelburne and Heinsberg, maybe Virgins, Bristol. I mean, I know they have their intercept calls where they do things for other towns, but if we could come up with a way for a regional supported fire and rescue, I think that looks like a better picture in the future.
Thanks, Frank. We're winding down and I'm wondering if there was a question. I don't see any other questions coming from our community, but I'm wondering if there's a question that we didn't ask that you wish that we asked. For you, Natalie, just to get to know you as best as we can as community members, and Frank, to know you even more.
Recording in progress.
Okay, you didn't have to respond. I just didn't know if there was anything that you wished. But at this point, yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I'm happy to just say a few things that I wonder if people are maybe thinking. And one of them is about, being a newer resident in town, and, that I think that sometimes feels a little off-putting to people, that, that there are a lot of people on the select board who've been here for a really long time, and I'm on the newer side, and that can feel sometimes like people coming in and wanting change, and that's really not my perspective on town. I like I said when I opened my first answer, I love it here. I really do, and I really want to be a support to the community. I really I see the value in my perspective, as partly as a person who's been here for a little bit less time, but also as a mother, also as a mental health counselor, all the different things that are part of my experience, I think bring just a slightly different perspective, which I hope could be useful to work on the select board.
Thanks for sharing that, Natalie. Frank, do you have any last words of wisdom?
I don't know if they're wisdom or not, but again, I welcome new ideas. I'm glad you're running, Natalie. I think this town runs on volunteers, and whether you get on the select board or not, I applaud that you're trying. I tried 4 or 5 times before I got on the board, so I applaud you. If you don't, please do it again. And so I'm always looking for, I'm always grateful for all the volunteers that we step forward and want to help. And I'll leave it at that, because I've been a long time volunteer, and it's been rewarding.
Thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Frank. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Louise and Matt in absentia. Really, this concludes our candidates night. Really appreciate you coming out and recognizing that the community is only as good as people who are committed to practice and act on their sense of citizenry. So I'm glad we had a good turnout. I'm glad that those who participated could share a bit about them, so that we can make informed decisions when we go to vote. I'm going to pass it back to Ty.
Yeah, I think I just want to echo Jonathan and say I have so much appreciation for all the folks that tuned in to become more informed voters, and also for the candidates who took the time to be here tonight. I know that there's been a lot of select board meetings recently and a lot of time that's spent dedicated to the town, even more than normal, leading up to town meeting or town election day. And I also just want to express my gratitude to the Charlotte Library, whose Zoom account and just general resources is helping bring information to all of our residents, not just through books, but through Zoom gatherings and all their events. They really do enable so much richness in this community, and the Grange and the library we love to collaborate with each other and along with other organizations in the town. So I am going to put in another plug to check out the Grange's website, charlottegrange.org, because we're hoping to continue to grow our membership and then increase our capacity to do all the things we do to make Charlotte a richer place. And it was great to see you guys all tonight. Appreciation for the candidates for showing up, and please vote on the first Tuesday of March at the town hall from 7 to 7. You also can vote at any time starting now when the town hall is open. You can go and get a ballot and fill it out there, or bring it home and bring it back. So really, truly, we do all this work, but we also depend on voters participating and being part of it all. So thanks for being here tonight, and remember to get out to vote.